3204. Michelangelo. Error code 400. Chapter 2. Above we go. Notes. This took a bit, but hey, long chapter. Hope like it. This chapter wasn't revised as well, so sorry if its sound bad or some spelling is off. Chapter text. The hidden city market was crowded as always. He could hear the sounds of chatter as he proceeded to walk through the crowds of many Yoki species. He grabbed his hood, ensuring it was secure to not show his face. More and more people pushed him aside, bumping into his shoulders. "Watch where you're going, kid," a tall Yoki shouted at him before walking away. How badly he wanted to shove them back to give them a piece of his mind. But knowing most Yoki, he would cause a scene, and his father, and more importantly Big Mama, would eventually find out about it. Finally leaving the market, he looks up to the sky. As always, no stars. He can't help but think back to his father's teachings. Humans are nothing but a bunch of vile low-life creators, Draxum stated, crushing the small toy in hand. The small turtle flinched at the noise of the toy's plastic being crunched. "No creation of mine will take part in human culture." He threw the now crumbled Jupiter Gym action finger to the ground. Tears now threatened to fall down the young turtle's eyes. "Your only purpose is to destroy humans and reclaim the surface from them." Draxum stared down at the small turtle, who was trying his best to not let the tears in his eyes fall. "Do you understand?" The turtle only nodded, too afraid to speak against his creator. Draxum turned to leave the room, but before he left he looked back at the turtle. "I suggest that you get ready for training with Big Mama. You know how she gets when you are late." He was always so redundant, destroying humans this, destroying humans that. As much as he found the repetitive lesson annoying, he knew his father was right. After all, it was a human that caused him to lose the other turtle mutants that he would have grown up with. He always wondered what they would look like, but his father never told him anything other than that they were all destroyed by a human. It's for the best. Why should he care for beings that he'll never meet? His only purpose in this life was to reclaim the surface for Yoki's kind. He proceeded to walk away from the market, towards his father's lab hidden pretty far from the main city. As he approached the path to the Devil's Backbone, looking ahead to see his father's lab just beyond the trail, he couldn't help but have this gut feeling that something was wrong. He quickened his pace down the path, ignoring the loud sounds from the lava demons. Just as he makes his way off the path, he sees a flash of blue. There was suddenly a group of reptiles not too far ahead. Their backs were turned away from him. They were all a little shaken and out of breath, but the blue one was quick and took out a small token from his pouch and made a portal to the surface. They all entered, and just as the portal closes, an explosion from the lab sent smoke his way. He covered his face as the cloud of smoke approached. It only took a few seconds for the dust cloud to finally pass. He immediately bolts to the entrance of the laboratory. Bursting through the entrance where the doors used to be, he ran through the crumbled halls, calling out for his father. "Lord Draxum," he shouted. Reaching the main lobby with now a giant hole in the siblings, he called again. "Lord Draxum." He jumped down into the floor of the main lobby, which was converted to a secondary lab to contain all of the mutagens. He called out again. "Father." He knew he would be chewed out for addressing him as father, but he was panicking. He scrambled around looking for any sign of life. Father called again, looking around the discarded piles of rubble. Still no response. He called out once more, wanting any sign of life. "Fath, what have I said about addressing me as that?" A voice behind him spoke. He zipped around to see his creator, dusting off his shoulders with his two henchmen behind him. He immediately straightened his position, putting his arms behind his back, wiping off any visible display of fear on his face. "I apologize, Lord Draxum," he replied. Draxum only stared at him in return before turning around. "Help the gargoyles look for any surviving research." The explosion was mostly controlled, so it didn't take too long. He started to walk off. "I will head to my office and collect what I can once you finish reporting to me." "Well, I need to head to the main city to my old laboratory." "Understood, 4. Draxum said, stopping to look back at 4. "Yes, Lord Draxum," 4 responded. Draxum stared back at his creation for only a second, and started to walk off toward his office. From behind he could hear the gargoyles talking. They were already gathering supplies. "Well, at least the blast wasn't as bad as it was on our first day here," Huggin chirped. 4 went off to grab more supplies, finishing quickly. He collected what he could with a black-orange duffel bag he had in his room. He collected a few discarded papers and blueprints that survived the explosion. He then went towards his room, which was in decent condition. He collected cans of spray paint, a hobby he picked up a few years ago, along with some books on mystic abilities. After stuffing what he could in the bag, he went back towards the gargoyles. When he returned to the main area, Huggin and Munin were now speaking in a lower tone than before. Huggin and Munin were now speaking in a lower tone than before. 4 approached quietly behind the two gargoyles, eavesdropping on their conversation. "I don't know about this Huggin. I think he deserves to know," he heard Munin whisper. The boss said that he will explain it to him when he needs to know, remember, Hugin whispered back. Tell me what, 4 finally spoke. Both the gargoyles flew back shocked by the teen's presence. Oh hey, Squirt didn't see you there. How's it hanging? Hugin blurted out first. Mikey gave them both a glare seeing that they were holding back information from him. Okay. What happened while I was out training? He asked them, still glaring at them. Nothing happened, it was just another lab accident. Hugin replied, You know how it gets with experimentation. 4 only looked at them in return. He placed the bag down and sighed, okay then. I saw a bunch of reptiles enter a portal before the explosion happened. Care to explain that now both of the gargoyles seemed to be sweating droplets now. It only took a moment for Mutant to crack. I'm sorry Hugin, I can't lie to him. Mutant blurted out. Draxum finally perfected the mutagen, and we swear we were going to tell you, but then a bunch of intruders came and destroyed the lab, stealing the magic weapons in the process. Also, we found out those same intruders are the same. Hugin clasped his hand over Mutant's mouth. The same style as you, Hugin said nervously. 4 now starting to become a bit more pissed that Draxum was holding back information from him, even after he promised him that he would be more open with him now that he was 13. Hugin and Munin both take notice that the teen was getting mad at their answers. Look kid, I think you should ask Draxum about this situation. 4 only crossed his arms and rose his voice just a bit. What aren't you guys telling me? That my other creation survived. That day a loud booming voice was heard from another part of the rundown room. They all turned to see that the voice belonged to none other than Draxum. Mikey straightened his poster as the 2 gargoyles flew over towards him with their bags in their arms. While you were away, I finally retrieved the last ingredient I needed to complete the mutagen. I tested it out on a human who was caught in the crossfire while trying to retrieve the last ingredient. Draxum walked up to the young teenager. After the experiment was proven successful, I was interrupted by 4 intruders. One of them was a human girl, while the other 3 were turtles. 4 interest peaked at the mention of turtles. He stared directly at his creator's eyes as he was now towering over him. Draxum continued, the moment I saw them I realized that they were the same turtles that I lost the day you were made. So the others survived the explosion, as well? 4 asked. It would appear so, Draxum responded. It seemed that they do not know the truth about their true origins, so we can still convince them to join the Yoki's side in taking down the human. Draxum motioned for one of his Vi's to bring something. That is why I will need your help in convincing them. Draxum grabbed what looked to be a suit and mask, handing it to 4. Under close inspection, the fabric seemed to be very dark green with gold embroidering. The mask resembled a Draxum's mask, except the horns were much smaller. The eye sockets were white, not to mention mostly black, with the only color on it being the gold on the horns. He stared at his creator, confused by the outfit. Draxum took notice of it and started to explain. I know Big Mama said that her training would last until you're 15, but I believe you are ready to stop and head to the surface on your own for once. Now 4 was confused. Was his father willing to break a deal with Big Mama? But won't she be upset? You know how she's with her deals? 4 asked. I'll deal with her. You need only worry about your mission. Although 4 remained emotionless inside, he was thrilled. He had been waiting for the day he turned 15 and was allowed to explore the human world. But now he was finally going to see the world above. Yes, humans were evil, but the hidden city was all he had ever known. He thought it was only natural that he was curious. After all, unknown to Draxum, he bears a human name. Michelangelo. He was only 4 when he learned how to read. With the gargoyles' help, of course. He remembers going through a book that the gargoyles had brought him, so he was at least occupied when he was alone in his room. He never really read it, though. He only looked at the pictures. It was a book on Renaissance art. There was this one section that he loved specifically. It's the only thing that he read. The Sistine Chapel ceiling. He thought it was amazing how one person could create such a big price by himself. On the ceiling, for that matter. He knows humans were awful creatures, but he had to admit they can do some amazing things. The door to his room swings open. 4 acted quickly to hide the book. He immediately eases up when the gargoyles fly in. The fly circles around his head before landing by his sides. What are you doing there, Squirt? Munin asked, looking at the book by the 4-year-old's side. 4 opened the book to show what he was doing. I was reading the book you got me, 4 replied. He showed them the page he was on. They all proceeded to read together, with the gargoyles helping him read the word he couldn't say. In the end, they saw the artist and learned about him. 4 stopped reading halfway through the part where it spoke of Michelangelo's home life. The gargoyles stared, thinking that he was trying to say a word, but only to see a look of slight disappointment in the 4-year-old's eye. Hey, what's wrong, buddy? Hugin asked. Mikey stares at the gargoyle and asks the burning question he couldn't help but think about. Why don't I have a name? Both gargoyles are stunned by the serious question, not sure how to respond. But you have a name, buddy, it's for the turtle just sighed. Yeah, but that's what Lord Draxum used to not get too attached to me. It said it on my file on his desk, the four spoke. Both Hugjin and Munin look at each other knowing that was only half true. So you don't like your name? Munin asked. The turtle gently shook its head, staring at the page they were reading earlier. They both didn't know what to say to comfort the turtle into thinking his name was fine as it is. So Huggin came up with the most logical response. Then let's change it, he said, a little too loud if you ask Munin. The 4-year-old looked at the gargoyle shocked. Wait, I can change it, but won't Draxum be mad? The turtle replied so excitedly at the thought of having an actual name. Huggin is not too sure if this was a good idea to begin with, but figured it's already out there, might as well follow through. Sure, I don't see why not, and as for Draxum, let's just keep this to ourselves. Okay, squirt. Four's eyes lit up, shaking his head ecstatic by the news. Do you have a name in mind? He heard Munin say. Four thought about it. Honestly, he never expected to be able to choose his name. He expected if it did happen, Draxum would choose it. He looks around the room for maybe an idea. He looks at the drawing on his wall, which was filled with drawings of Jupiter Jim, a movie the gargoyles showed him when they ran out of ideas on how to entertain him. Maybe Jim, he thought to himself. Jupiter Jim was a hero, and Draxum did say that he would save Yoki's kind from the humans one day. So it seems fitting that he has the name of a hero. But the name Jim didn't fit him, so maybe he should keep looking. He comes across another drawing on his wall of him and Draxum. He remembers he made it right after Draxum had given him a lesson on mystic energy and how to activate it. He never could activate it on his own. He only learned how to activate it through a weapon that is already infused with mystic powers. But Draxum helped him. Perhaps he could be Draxum Jr. Not too cheesy, besides it would make things confusing for the gargoyles on who they are referring to. His eyes finally landed on the book that was still in front of him. He stared at the name of the artist. He smiled and confidently said, Michelangelo. Oh, and here, take this, Munin said, handing Michelangelo a purple mirror shard. You know, just so we can check up on you now. And then, Michelangelo chuckled, I'm not leaving forever. I'm just going to spy on our new friends, then come back, he said, trying to reassure the gargoyle. I know you just never been above before, and alone for that matter. Come on, Munin don't need it. I'll be fine. He tried to have it back to Mun, only to have a hand push it back into his hand. Still, just in case, Michelangelo nodded before pulling them into a hug. It was a good minute of Mikey sitting there as the gargoyles refused to let go. Finally they bid their goodbyes. As Michelangelo walked away, he could hear them trying to give further orders on how to be safe. He didn't catch much of it other than to look both ways before crossing the road. As he approached the same rocks he saw the other experiments walk into, he reaches into a pocket of a bag with small supplies for him, looking for a small token. He pulled it out to create the portal, only to hear his father from behind. In a rush to leave, I see, Lord Draxum. Welcome back. How did the meeting go? With Big Mama Draxum huffs out of breath. As expected, she did not take the news well. But you should be fine to leave without being hunted by any of Big Mama's goons. He slowly approached the young turtle. Mikey straightened his poster just a bit. Remember, do not attack, just observe them for now. Then report any findings to me. Now in front of the turtle, he continues. The mission remains the same. Retrieve the other weapons, and gather any and all intel on the other 3 subjects. Yes, Lord Draxum, Michelangelo spoke, but only received a stare down from Draxum, most likely seeing if he truly understood. Eventually he sees that he does, and proceeds to walk away to the now ruin of a mansion. You best be on your way. We've already wasted a lot of time. Michelangelo once again raised his hand to create the portal with the token. A bright glow of blue appears. Here goes nothing, he says to himself before entering the portal.